Hey YouTube! Today we're going to be trying to make a balsamic cherry tomato caramelized onion conserve. The recipe originally came from the Better Homes and Garden Can It cookbook, but I've printed mine off the SB canning site. I will put a link below to this website. What we're going to need is 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 pounds of sweet onions. I'm using Vidalia onions, and I'm going to quarter these and thinly slice them. We're going to need 4 cups of halved cherry or grape tomatoes. I've got a variety from my garden here. These are called blueberry, even though they kind of have a bluish tint at the top. When they start out, they're blue. I've got pink bumblebees, and these lovely little yellow tomatoes are called champagne. All of these seeds came from M.I. Gardener. I've grown them all in my garden this year. The champagne are wonderful. I will definitely grow them again, even though they burst easily, and you have to be careful and clip the limbs because they also tear easily when you're trying to pick them. Alright, we're also going to need a teaspoon of sugar, let's see, 4.5 cups of the halved cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes, 3/4 cups of honey, 1/4 cup of balsamic vinegar, and 1/2 teaspoon of freshly ground pepper. I am going to get my onions quartered and slightly thinned, and then we're going to put them in a large skillet or enamel pan with the oil and sugar, and we're going to cover and cook for about 13 to 15 minutes on low heat, stirring occasionally until they're tender. And while that's cooking, I'm going to cut up my cherry tomatoes. So we'll be back if my camera cooperates with me and see if we can get this video done. Got all my onions chopped up. I've got my 2 tablespoons of olive oil on the bottom there. Sprinkled my teaspoon of sugar over the top of this as instructed. So now I'm going to cover this up and put it on a low heat for about 13 to 15 minutes. And while this is, I'm going to stir it occasionally. While this is cooking down, I'm going to start slicing my cherry tomatoes in half. Got my onions pretty much tenderized a little bit now, and I'm going to cut the heat up to a medium heat. And it says to cook these until they're a golden brown. So that's probably going to take a few minutes, and I'm not going to make you stand here and sit here and watch us go through that. I've always had trouble getting onions to be a golden brown anyway, so it may take a few. So we'll bring you back when we're ready to add the other ingredients. So apparently the trick to getting your onions good and brown is to walk away and go put jars in the canner to be sterilizing, and then they start to scorch on the bottom. I've got I don't know if you can see that down there. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I can't turn it to where you can see. Yeah, nice little scorch mark down there. Anyway, so now my onions are nice and brown. We are going to add our tomatoes. That's 2 cups of, just cut them in half. And we're going to add the honey, 3/4 cup of honey. I sprayed my measuring cup with oil, hoping that it would prevent it from sticking in there too bad, but apparently it's still going to stick in there. So hang on a minute. Let's get a spoon and scrape all that out, because we need to start stirring. And I don't want to waste any honey, because honey is really expensive. Let's see. Okay, good enough. Alright, we're going to cook this now. Let's get this stirred up. It says to, let me get my directions too. I believe it says bring it to a boil. And cook it for 5 minutes. Let me double check that. See, bring to a boil over medium heat for 5 minutes or until tomatoes are softened. Yep, so that's where we're at now, folks. We're going to bring this up to a boil, and we'll bring you back in just a minute when it does, and we've cooked it down for 5 minutes. Right, this is boiling now, so I've started my timer for 5 minutes. It doesn't state that you have to stir it constantly, but I'm gonna stir it, keep a close eye on it to make sure it doesn't start to stick to the bottom. Putting the tomatoes in there with the honey has produced a good bit of liquid, so just need to be careful that it doesn't start to cook cook off the liquid too much and burn and stick to the bottom, because I've already got a burn mark on the bottom. We don't need any more stuff burning and sticking to the bottom. So when this is done cooking down and getting the tomatoes tender, we're going to take it off the heat and we're going to add our balsamic vinegar and pepper, and then we're going to start jarring it up. Finished boiling this for 5 minutes. It says until the tomatoes are soft, stirring often until thick enough to mount on a spoon. Well, I mean, this is never going to be like a jelly. There's just no way, and I would have to cook this down forever. So I'm going to go with this and see what happens. For now, we're going to add the balsamic vinegar. This is a 1/4 cup. And it says a 1/2 teaspoon of fresh ground pepper. We're just going to kind of eyeball this. And we're going to lose our spoon, so what we're going to do. Okay, that's probably, let's stir that in a little bit. We'll add a little more. Okay, my pepper grinder doesn't want to ground pepper. There we go. Alright, that's probably good enough. Just get some pepper in there to taste. I'm going to say that now this is ready to start jarring up. Let's look at our directions. Remove from heat, add the balsamic vinegar and pepper, which we did. So yep, we're ready to start filling jars. I've got to go get some jars out of the canner because I've got them out there sterilizing. So, ready to start jarring up. We're going for a 1/4 inch headspace on this. Now this is certainly not going to gel up like a jam or a jelly, even though it's called a conserve. I normally think of a conserve as something gelling up, because that's what I have done with them. Oh, that's way too much for that little jar. Oh wow, way too much. Okay. Spoon some of that back in there. Hot. Talk about an overfill. Okay. Here we go. Definitely will need to be wiping the rims on these. So first off, let's debubble this one and see where we're at. That could take a little bit more, just a smidge bit more. What time am I thinking? Yep, there we go. Okay. Wipe our rims really good, because I really got that one grungy. All over the side and everything. I have to get another paper towel. Try not to do that anymore. Last one on the roll and it's not won't come off. There we go. Alright, ready for the canner. Finger tight on your lids. And I left my jar lifter outside, so I'll have to hold up another one. I'll finish jarring this stuff up and speed up the camera so you can see. And then we'll go out to the canner and show you the setup on that. Got 6 pints in the canner and 1 4-ounce jar. I probably should have made some more 4-ounce jars. You probably see, you notice, if you can see, I'm having trouble finding a spot that the sun's not hitting and making a glare on the picture. And plus we're steaming up from the steam coming off this. I've got a bunch of empty jars in there, and that's to keep the jars that I have filled from moving around. If you don't have enough jars to fill your canner, lay some down sideways. You just don't want your jars to tip over when that water starts boiling really good, because you're going to bring this up to a full rolling boil. You make sure you've got an inch of water over the top of your jars, and we're going to water bath these for 10 minutes. But when that water gets to boiling, those jars can become buoyant even when they're full and tip over, and then you risk losing what's in the jar, not getting a seal, so on and so forth. So, okay, we're going to bring this up to a full rolling boil and set the timer for 10 minutes, and we'll show you the finished product. I tend to forget sometimes that somebody might be new to canning, and when I'm talking about a full rolling boil, this is what I mean by a full rolling boil. After our 10 minutes are up, I raise the rack up out of the water very carefully. Be careful of the steam. Be sure you've got some pot holders, preferably something that's waterproof so you don't burn yourself. And I'm going to let them sit like this for about another 5 minutes. I don't want to, and ping, there's already the pings. I love hearing that. That means it's sealing. You don't want to shock your jars. So I'm canning outside, as you can kind of see. I'm outdoors. Just one, this keeps my house cooler. I don't have to heat up my house doing all this. And secondly, it makes cleanup a little easier, at least for me. My stove does not like to get this big kettle up to a full rolling boil like it was. It just struggles to do it. So my camp stove is the perfect thing for me to do that on. I'm also going to be blanching some squash out here again, so I don't have to heat up the house. So anyway, these are going to sit for 5 minutes, and then I will carefully take them out and put them on a cooling mat and let them sit for at least 24 hours. So here's our finished products. I actually ended up with 6 half pints in the one little 4 ounce here. One of the jars, when I was washing them, the lid popped off, so it didn't seal. I just stuck it in the refrigerator. I took it to work with me today along with some sliced up Italian bread, and had people taste test it for me, and everybody loved it. The jar was just about empty. There was probably about that much left in the bottom of the jar by the end of the day. And I just gave it to somebody and told them to take it home and finish it off that night. I would eat this like bruschetta. It's definitely got a sweet flavor with the honey in there, and the balsamic and the Vidalia onions just really give it a very unique flavor. I would buy a baguette, slice it up, toast them up, and melt some mozzarella cheese on there, specifically fresh mozzarella cheese, and serve this on top of it like you would bruschetta. This would also make a good condiment to accompany other meats, specifically a good burger topping. I will list the recipe below, as I said, so you can go directly to the website SB Canning, or I think that's what they're canning homemade, something like that. And if you want to try it yourself, if you have an abundance of cherry tomatoes like I do right now and need something to do because they're coming in faster than you can eat them, this would be a great recipe for that. Thank you for watching, and happy canning.